time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beem Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gies, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
Greetings, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to another episode of the Voice of Indie podcast. This is episode number 224, and I am your host, Beem Weeks. And with me is Mr. Stephen Gies. How you doing tonight, Stephen?
I'm doing all right. Just a little bit frazzled here. My microphone went out right before showtime. I had to reboot, and I'm trying to get everything set back up again really fast.
Okay.
We do have a good time here, don't we?
Yeah. In the meantime, I'll put this out to all you listeners. We received word today from Blog Talk Radio that they are ceasing operations. I mean, I don't know if it's because they're falling apart so much and we can't get on the air half the time. I'm guessing a lot of other clients there are jumping ship and going elsewhere. So we are we've got our eyes on another platform, and we're looking at that, and we're going to try that out. We're going to test that. We're going to continue doing Blog Talk right up till January 31st is the final day for Blog Talk Radio. So we're going to try another site, and hopefully we can transfer over to that one without missing a beat and come to you, every Wednesday, and this time with a new platform. Hopefully we won't have any more of the same issues. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. So just before showtime here, my lady friend had wanted to see Pink this weekend, and back when we first looked at tickets, they started at $800 and something a piece, so we didn't do that because by the time you add the Ticketmaster charges, that's over $1,000 a seat, and for $1,000 a seat, I want to see Chick Corea come back from the dead and perform for me. I'm serious. That's a ridiculous amount of money. But resale tickets now, if you wait till the last minute, resale tickets start popping up at way cheaper prices. So I grabbed a couple of seats. I'm looking forward to that. Pink is a great performer. She does this thing where she flies around the arena on a wire. I went and saw her once with a friend of mine, and we were sitting in the upper bowl in the back of an arena, and she left the stage, flew across the arena, flew up to where we were sitting, and high-fived us. And then went down the row, high-fived everybody in the row, and then flew away. That's a lot of fun. So there's a video of her doing that, and I just posted it on Twitter X or X Twitter or whatever you want to call that thing these days with the link so that you can go check that out. So how you doing otherwise, Beam?
I'm doing well. If it's $1,000 a ticket, for me, it's going to be either Led Zeppelin or the Beatles. All four originals.
With John Bonham, yes. Or,
with John Bonham
George,
or the
George
Beatles with George and John.
George and John.
So, $1,000 is $1,000. So, we're going through the fall weather right now. It's getting kind of chilly, but we actually have had a nice November up here. It's been in the 50s, and we're getting ready to drop a little bit, but it's supposed to be in the 50s for the next week or so. So I'm not complaining. It's a good time up here. I'm not a big winter fan.
I'm going to skip the next two bullets on our rundown here and go to announcing that the Star Child Saga 4, Iapetus Federation, is out now. And this used to be part of the Star Child trilogy. It was the third book in the Star Child trilogy by Robert G. Williscroft, science fiction master, who we're proud to have here at Fresh Ink Group. And he has since rejiggered that thing, and he took his collection, the Daedalus Files, and put that within that universe and has now made this a 4-book, the Star Child Saga series. We have put out the first 3. We've now put out the 4th, so all 4 books of the Star Child Saga are out there now, although sometimes you can't see the covers or have other little minor problems for the first week or two. But otherwise, get out there and check out the Star Child Saga by Robert G. Williscroft.
Yeah, the covers thing, it's usually, it's within the first 3 days they usually pop up. But I don't know what it is about Amazon. We're starting to see more books, not just from us, but from other people who publish as we do, where the covers don't show up. And LSI, our lady at LSI, she's telling us that it can take up to 30 days now for those to appear on Amazon. They're already up and showing on, Barnes & Noble and some of those other places, but Amazon, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, but whatever. So Speaking of Dr. Robert G. Williscroft, his Operation Velo Redux, a Mac McDowell mission, is out, and it is available, and it is on Amazon, and it is on Barnes & Noble, and wherever you buy your books. So get over there and check that out.
And there's a couple more Williscroft books in the pipeline, too. Operation Alpha Rogue. We've already got the front cover for that ready, and he's putting the final touches on that. And then he's got another book in the works that's going to combine two of his series, the Star Child Saga and the Ort Chronicles. So we're looking forward to lots coming from Williscroft in the coming year.
And he's even got an audiobook coming out, Keyed, A Civilization in Hiding. I'm working on that right now, and the status is I'm almost finished with chapter 10 on that. I will be sending him that file in the next day or two, and getting his okay, and then moving on to chapter 11 and having a lot of fun with it. It's work, but it's a lot of fun. It's the kind of work that you enjoy. So keep your eyes and ears open for the status on that. We got a newsletter. You'll find out through the newsletter if you subscribe to it.
Speaking of audiobooks, I want to remind you that we put out an audiobook this summer, too, by Cheryl Carpinello. It's The King's Ransom, Tales and Legends. And this is part of her work, and she's got a companion book that goes with this that's reaching middle school-aged kids, and with a little bit of an emphasis on boys as well, so which is generally a group that's not real receptive to reading. So Cheryl's putting a lot of effort into reaching out to those groups and doing very well with them, and we're proud to have her audiobook as part of our library, The King's Ransom, Tales and Legends by Cheryl Carpinello. And who narrated that thing, Beem?
That would be Ethan Drew. He is a Hollywood actor. He's been in some pretty big movies, and he does voice work in cartoons and animated film, and his star's on the rise, Ethan Drew. So that one was fun to put together. And we got the three professional.
We got the three audiobooks from Ellie Collins as well, and he narrated the third book in that series.
That's right.
And that's part of her Greek mythology series of chapter books, also aimed at primarily middle schoolers and young high schoolers. That's by Ellie Collins, who wrote those books when she was 11, 12, and 13 years old. So we're kind of proud of those, too.
Yeah, and I'm going to drop in here for a minute before I read the next one and say Fresh Ink Group is now on TikTok. We just started the TikTok channel the other night, so go over there and look for fresh.ink.com. No, fresh.ink.group. That .com always gets me. But fresh.ink.group, and because there's other Fresh Ink groups out there that are like tattoo artists and things like that. But go check it out. I think there's like four things up there. We're going to be added to that over the coming weeks, and it's going to be mostly book trailers and things like that. So if you haven't checked us out on YouTube, check us out on TikTok. Now, Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service, a candid memoir by the first woman mayor of Huntsville, Alabama, is out now. As the title says, this is a memoir. Loretta broke all the rules and the stereotypes, and she went on to great success as the first woman mayor in Huntsville, Alabama, and she helped build that city into what it is now. I believe it's the biggest city in Alabama, isn't it?
It is. It bypassed Birmingham.
There you go, and a lot of that has found the foundation in what Loretta Spencer, I almost said Loretta Lynn, Loretta Spencer laid. So Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service. It's a candid memoir, and there's pictures in there, and it's her side of the stories and things that she remembers fondly, and what it took to fight to get to the top. So go check it out.
All right. And speaking of publishing young people, we've got another book that we've been having a lot of fun with the last 2 weeks, Trains of Alabama. Short lines, rail yards, engines, heritage units, rail fan photos, and more. And this is out now. And this book includes an introduction by Angie Birmingham. She's a world-famous wildlife photographer based in South Texas. And she's fantastic. And she's been kind of helping mentor Braden a little bit. Braden Dexter Green is the author of Trains of Alabama. He is also the photographer who took all of the photos in there. He's got a new website now, BradenDexterGreen.com. He's got a new blog, BradenDexterGreen.wordpress.com. But sometime in the next few days, you should be able to find his blog embedded in his website. We're setting up a YouTube channel for him. He's got a whole bunch of things that he's getting ready to launch here. But in the meantime, check out that book. If you know a rail fan, anybody who's seriously into trains, these are some cool photos. And he's got a cool trailer for this book, too, over on our YouTube channel, Fresh Ink Group YouTube channel. Go check that out as well.
All right. We'd like to hear from you. We want you to call in if you got questions, comments, or go over to X and throw your questions or comments that way. Use hashtag Fresh Ink Group, and we'll see it. We want you to be part of the show. That's why we stuck around with Blog Talk Radio, because we get a phone line here, and we like to hear from listeners. So you got a question for tonight's guest, a comment, give us a call, and here's how you can do that.
Call 516-453-9902 right now with your questions or comments for tonight's guest, or post a note on Twitter with hashtag Fresh Ink Group in the body of the tweet, and we'll read it on air. That's 516-453-9902 or hashtag Fresh Ink Group on Twitter.
Yeah.
Be there.
Speaking of Angie Birmingham, who wrote the introduction for Braden Dexter Green's Trains of Alabama book, we've just published her book, Journey Through the Lens, Creative Guide to Nature Photography. It is out now, and it's out there doing very well, getting a great reception and starting to get some good reviews. This is a cool book. I've always kind of wondered, I like taking pictures like a lot of people do, and I've always kind of wondered, how do they get that glow in the background? How do they get that moving look, the bokeh backgrounds and all those kinds of things? And she covers this stuff. She does this thoroughly, does a good job, keeps it simple, keeps it easy, shows you examples of stuff. This is a great book. It's a big book, 8.5 by 11, like the Trains of Alabama is. Since we're looking at photos, we'd like to see them big and, for us old people who don't see so well anymore. But that's definitely a cool book, and I'm going to highly endorse that one. If you want to learn anything about photography, that's your book, especially wildlife photography.
And Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow is a novel by Nell Cooper, and that is out now and available. And Nell is out there just working it. She doing a lot of book signings and whatnot, and she's had big success with events at libraries and whatnot. And if you want to find out where she's at, she's got a website, nellcooper.com. She's got a blog, nellcooperauthor.wordpress.com. So get over there and check. And if you just want to go to nellcooper.com, you'll find the blog there as well. And she's got her events are listed over there, I believe. So get over there and check it out.
Yeah. Now, we've got another Fresh Ink Group member author, Janelle A. Jordan. We published her first book just, I think, about a year and a half ago, something like that, called Minority Millennials in the Workforce. And now she's got a new book out that we just published, I think this was about 3 weeks ago, called The Reality of Interpersonal Leadership. And this book is it's like a workbook. It's a full-size book. It's got worksheets in it, and it's kind of daily goals that you can set and things like that. And it's basically a good professional development book, especially for people who are going to be in leadership roles in their careers. But it's good for learning how to be a leader in just all aspects of life, except for unless you want to be president of the HOA, in which case we don't endorse anything with that. But Janelle A. Jordan, she knows her stuff, and she's been doing very well with this book. 2 weeks ago, she was in the number 1 and 2 slots, if I remember right, as well as last week. So I'm curious to see how high up she is on our list tonight, too. So congratulations, Janelle A. Jordan. The Reality of Interpersonal Leadership is out now.
Yeah, and we got 2 out from Verwayne Greenhoe. I Remember Judy and Dealing with Grief. They are both out now. There are book trailers for those as well over on the YouTube channel. So get over there and check that out. Verwayne, for I Remember Judy, he tells a story about his first wife and losing her, and then he's got Dealing with Grief, on how to deal with the grief of losing somebody. So get over there and check them out.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Carlisle Toms is an author. We've put out his 4th or we're working on his fourth book now. We've put out 3 books by him in fairly rapid succession here. The third one is Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch, and that is out now. And the fourth book by him, The Gulls Are Always Laughing, which is a collection of poetry and shorts, is going to be out sometime next week as well. So we've got 4 Carlisle Toms books out there that are all doing quite well, but Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch is the latest, and that's got a real cool cover. We went with a kind of our staff artist did kind of a 1960s kind of a Peter Max psychedelic look, which is what Carlisle wanted for this, and we're real pleased with how that turned out as well. So hey, if nothing else, go over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or your favorite bookseller, and check out that cover. And while you're at it, read the blurb, and maybe you'll order a copy, too. That's Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch by Carlisle Toms.
And also, we've got A Beggar's Bargain, and now, book 2 in the Bargainer series, A Noble Bargain by Jan Sykes. And word has it, Jan's deep into work on book 3 of the Bargainer series, so we're looking forward to that. Jan has really been having some success. She's doing a lot of these live in-person stuff, book signings and whatnot, and so get over there and check those out. And if you want to know other books that are coming in, if you miss an episode of this, we've got a newsletter. Every Wednesday we send this newsletter out, and it's a quick read. It's 20 minutes or less, and it just brings you up to date on what's coming out, who's going to be on the podcast on Wednesday evening, and all kinds of cool stuff like that. There's excerpts from books that we're publishing or that our guests already have out and we haven't published, but there's excerpts, and we get to read those and find out what their books are about as well. So get the newsletter, and here's how you can subscribe to it if you're not already there.
Stay on top of these podcasts and all things Fresh Ink Group with our weekly digital newsletter. New releases, videos, stories, excerpts, interviews, and more. Sign up now on the homepage of FreshInkGroup.com and be the one who knows what's what.
What? All right.
All right. Now, I filled out a survey last night, and right in the middle of this lengthy survey, one of the questions said, select the color silver from the list below. And what it was a check question. It was to see if I was really reading all the questions or if I'm just going down and checking boxes and stuff. Now, we've got kind of a similar test here. Last week, during the podcast, we waited till about 2/3 of the way through the show before we did the top 25 list. And, boy, did I hear from a lot of people. That was pretty cool. It was like, hey, people really are listening and people are paying attention to that list. So we're going to move it back up front again this week. We've also had 1 or 2 people over the years suggest maybe cut that down to the top 10 or something like that. But, we do these podcasts to support our authors and, our publishing and stuff, but we do it for the entire indie community. If you're an indie author and you're out there and you're doing working hard, putting out some good material and you need some exposure, we'd like to welcome you on the podcast and see what we can do to help pitch. So in this case, this is a chance where we get to run through some of our authors' books. So it takes a couple of minutes, yeah, but a lot of people are liking it, and I like the fact that we can give a shout-out to people. So let's take a look at the top 25 print bestsellers from Fresh Ink Group over the past week. Down in the bottom slots, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them tied, and those 6 are How to Teach Driving, the Instructor's Edition by Kenneth Lindquist. He's also got a Parents Edition out there, so if you know somebody who's learning to drive, now's the time to get over and check out the Kenneth Lindquist books. We've got Jerry Pate, Submariner, 30 Years of Hijinks and Keeping the Fleet Afloat, the paperback edition of his 60-chapter memoir, which is just chock full of all kinds of cool, fun, military, U.S. Navy, submarine, and all kinds of hijinks stories. So check that out. Submariner, 30 Years of Hijinks and Keeping the Fleet Afloat. We've also got How to Start and Run Your Own Food Truck Business in Florida by A.K. Wingler. We have published 3 of her food truck business books, Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia. And so if you're starting a food truck business in any of those states, you've got to have these books. But if you're thinking about it anywhere in the United States, this 90% of the information in these is fairly useful just about anywhere. Recommended floor plans, what kind of equipment you need, how to set things up, and how to operate and stuff like that. So we recommend those. Now, the other 2 that are tied for the bottom end of this list is a pair by Robert G. Williscroft. They are both Mac McDowell missions, Operation Icebreaker and Operation Ivy Bells. Ivy Bells is the first book in that Mac McDowell Mission series, which is now up to 5 with number 6, Alpha Rogue, getting ready to come out probably early next year as well. If you're into submarine thrillers, Cold War thrillers, Americans versus Ruskies, that's the Mac McDowell Mission series. So check those out. Now, as we move up the list, there's one more that's tied in that group, the Hippocampus, the interactive brain book, fun learning for science lovers. Who's that by, Beem?
What one was that? I'm reading something
The Hippocampus.
Here. That's by Dr. Helen Burrell.
Dr. Helen Burrell, who we hope is out there listening right now.
That's a kid's book. She's on hold.
It's an illustrated kids book to teach about the brain, but it's using hippopotamuses, hippocampus. It's a play on words, and it's just a fun, cool book. All right, so let's work our way up the list now to the ones that are selling more than the ones tied in that group. Operation Vela Redux, a Mac McDowell mission by Robert G. Williscroft. That's 3 Mac McDowell missions now in our top 25. So congratulations, Robert. People are out there taking submarine rides with you. Verwayne Greenhoe, Dealing with Grief. This is Verwayne had been through some stuff, and he's learned a lot, and he shares that with us, and it's very generous and gracious of him to do that. Check out his Dealing with Grief book. That's Verwayne Greenhoe. Now, David Carroll, I Won't Be Your Scapegoat. David Carroll's Homemade Social Media Blunders. David's a NBC evening newscaster based out of Chattanooga. And we've published 3 of his books so far, all of which have just done very well. What's this one about, Beem?
That is social media blunders and signs with misspelled words and kind of double entendres on signs. Just some funny stuff. It's a laugh out loud book. We say this every week when we talk about it. Stephen and I went through this book, and as we were going through it, we were laughing. I mean, literally laughing out loud. It's that funny. So if you want to laugh and you put it on a coffee table, and when you have company come over, they'll thumb through it. They'll start laughing. So
yeah,
good icebreaker.
Now, Jan Sykes is one of our favorite authors. She's one of our favorite people. And we've had the privilege of publishing 2 of her books so far. She's got a lot of books out there. She's got music out there. She's got CDs. She's got work that she's done with her late husband and whatnot. So she's got a lot of stuff. And if you're not hip to Jan Sykes, you need to be out there checking her out. But the 2 books we've published by her are the first 2 books in her Bargainers series. And those are the next 2 books on our list, A Beggar's Bargain and A Noble Bargain. In that order. That's number 1 and number 2 in the series. She's working on the 3rd one right now and what's expected to become a trilogy. These bargain stories are cool. They're historical novels. They're set in the Midwest, out west in the Missouri area, and they're basically kind of the story of people having to make a bargain in order to get what they want, and what become the consequences of that. So check out the Bargainers series by Jan Sykes, A Noble Bargain and A Beggar's Bargain. Now, working up our list, the numbers start going up here. Of course, we've got a Country Music Hall of Fame drummer. Who would that be, Beem?
That would be Mark Herndon.
Yeah,
28
the
years
High
with
Road.
the country supergroup Alabama.
Yeah. His book's called The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip. And this is probably our Fresh Ink Group bestseller ever, because we published this thing, it's been quite a while, like 5-6 years at least since we published this, and it's always on our list. So congratulations, Mark Herndon. You did it again. Paperback edition of The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip. Now, if we skip over the next one, I'm looking at The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip, hardcover edition. So they're both in our top 25 right now, and I want to stress, if you're a country music fan, if you're a drummer fan, if you're an Alabama fan, if you're a Mark Herndon fan, or if you just like cool memoirs, you could go to markherndon.com, and over there you can order a copy of the book and request to have Mark autograph it for you, and he'll even annotate it. Like if you know somebody who's a fan and you want to say, happy birthday, Becky, love Mark Herndon or something like that, he'll do that for you. So Mark's a cool guy. He lives not far from me here in Alabama, which, boy, what a coincidence. He was in the group Alabama, based in Fort Payne, Alabama. But Mark's pretty cool about that. Now, in between those, we've got Trains of Alabama, Short Lines, Rail Yards, Engines, Heritage Units, Railfan Photos, and more by Braden Dexter Green, 14 years old. He lives not far from Birmingham, Alabama, and he spent his summer doing a summer project before starting high school, going around and collecting pictures of rare rare pictures. These are not just, taking a picture of a train going by. This is tracking a particular heritage unit from out west that's going to be passing through Alabama on a certain date, and he's down there waiting with his camera so that he can get that. That's the hardcover edition, Beem, the hardcover edition of Trains of Alabama that's doing that well. And if I go up 2 more slots above that, there's the paperback edition of Trains of Alabama as well. So, Braden Dexter Green, congratulations. You've achieved bestseller status at Fresh Ink Group with your first book, age 14, less than 2 weeks out, and we're all having fun. Now, in between those, we've got an illustrated chapter book for children by B.A. Johnson. It's her third one, Pandemonium in Puzzle Town. This is an allegory about puzzle pieces who have to learn how to live together even though they're a little bit different. So it's a story about inclusion. And it's a very nice one. It's doing very well. She's also the author of the 2 Sassy books, Sassy Discovers the AME Church and its follow-up as well. So if you're interested in AME Church books for children, she's the only one doing them. She found a niche there that nobody else was filling. She filled them, and now she's getting a lot of attention for those, which is cool. Now, in between those, we've got Phil Lippert, Crimes and the People Who Commit Them, fiction with conviction by the guy who did the time. And Beem, didn't he write most of these while he was in prison?
He did. And I'll tell you, I did the editing on that, and that is those are some really cool short stories. They're not all prison set, so it's not just, well, this is what was going on in prison. Dude's a really good storyteller, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he is.
And I thoroughly enjoyed that book. I believe I reviewed that and gave it 5 stars. So, yeah. Yeah.
Now, we're up to the top 8 here, and the numbers are starting to go up and go up and go up. Here's Journey Through the Lens, Creative Guide to Nature Photography by Angie Birmingham. We talked about her a couple of times earlier. The paperback edition of her book is now at number 8 on our print bestseller for this week. And here's one for you, Jan Sykes. I hope you're listening. At number 7, hardcover. The hardcover edition of your latest A Noble Bargain is at number 7 on our print bestseller list. And I still shake my head and wonder, how are we selling novels in hardcover editions when printing costs are so high these days and we have to put cover prices on there that make us cringe? But the way you do it, you have a cool cover, you have a great author, you have a fantastic story, you help her build a reputation, and then people want to have a nice copy to leave on their shelf or to lend to friends. So, A Noble Bargain, hardcover. Congratulations, Jan. That's quite an accomplishment.
All right.
Yeah, that gets us to our top 6. Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service, a candid memoir by the first woman mayor of Huntsville, Alabama, by Loretta Spencer, paperback edition. This book's only been out there for about 8 or 9 days, and you can't even see the cover if you're looking at the paperback or hardcover on Amazon. So check that out. If you're into women's history, political history, Alabama history, it's just a fun rip-roaring ride with her. Top 5 now. Number 5, Mr. President, I've Got Your Back, The First Ladies of South Carolina State University by Abigail H. Guiney and Mary L. Smalls. And Beem, it's the hardcover edition. This is a big book. This is a collector's book. It's a full-size 8.5 by 11. It's one to keep on your shelf, and it's African-American history. It's women's history. It's academic history, and it's just a cool trip down through history. Mr. President, I've Got Your Back. It focuses on the first ladies behind the presidents at South Carolina State University. Abigail is working on her 3rd book now after we published her There Must Be Something in the Water. And this one's going to be about the first ladies of Alabama A&M University, where she was also a first lady while her husband was president. That gets us to number 4. Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service, a candid memoir by the first woman mayor of Huntsville, Alabama, and it's the hardcover edition that's shooting up the charts here. That's pretty good when you can't even see the cover on Amazon and people are still buying it. So Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service is in our number 4 slot. Number 3, well, congratulations, Nell Cooper. Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow, your first novel for adults. One of our first authors we ever published decades ago, I mean, this is a long time ago, was Nell Cooper. We did her Princess Lil, which is a chapter book aimed at little girls about bullying, a little pony that's getting bullied. And since then, she has talked about writing that novel quite a bit, and finally she did it. We helped her get it all put together, and look at that, it's number 3 on our print bestseller list right now. All right, Beam. I know you're just champing at the bit here. Top 2.
Champ.
Yep. And by the way, people, the word is champing, not chomping. Top 2 are the same book. Hardcover is in the number 1 slot. Paperback is in the number 2 slot, and it's Janelle A. Jordan, The Reality of Interpersonal Leadership, A Guide to Leading Authentically. And I'm looking at some very impressive numbers here. Yeah, this is pretty cool. So, The Reality of Interpersonal Leadership, A Guide to Leading Authentically is our number 1 and number 2 print bestseller for this week. Congratulations, Janelle. Congratulations to all of you who made the list this week. And as I like to say, those of you who didn't make the top 25, I'll bet you were at number 26. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. All right. Congratulations to everybody. When you threw it to me and I didn't hear what you said, I was checking out Twitter, or X, as the kids call it these days. And Verwayne Greenhoe, he threw a tweet out there, or a post now. There's a full moon in the southern sky. Sounds like there's a full moon in the southern sky. Kind of sounds like a country song. With winds of 20 miles per hour, making it feel cold. Lisa and I are about to listen to Bill Yarborough and host Stephen J's and Beam Weeks on the Voice of Indie podcast. I just pulled a couple of Diet Cokes from the mini fridge, and we are ready. Welcome aboard, Verwayne and Lisa Greenhoe. We are glad to have you here. We have a YouTube channel, and this YouTube channel is called Fresh Ink Group. If you're not subscribed to it, we would love to have you go over there, check out the videos we've got, subscribe to it. When you watch the videos, hit the like buttons. We've got book trailers. We've got this podcast. We archive it over there, so in situations like Blog Talk Radio going out of business, we're not going to lose our episodes. We've got them all. So get over there and check out the book trailers. They're meant to entice you to buy these books, and it gives you a little bit of a story behind the book that you're looking at, whatever the trailer is. And it's got the archived episodes of this show. So get over there and check it out. YouTube, Fresh Ink Group, and be sure to subscribe. In the meanwhile, here's a little something about our archive.
Find your favorite show in the Voice of Indie archives on YouTube at Fresh Ink Group, StephenG's.com, BeamWeeks.com, FreshInkGroup.com, and on Spotify. And now, you can listen on iHeartRadio and tune in. Just search The Voice of Indie, all one word.
All right. Now, a minute ago, you were talking about the moon in the southern sky. You were hearing country music. I was hearing the moon is in the 7th house. But I'm showing my age. That's the 5th dimension, age of Aquarius. That's like 1967.
This is the dawning and the age of Aquarius.
Oddly enough, that was actually a Jeopardy clue the other day. They wanted to know what was in the 7th house, and it's like, oh, okay. Or what was the moon in? That's what it was, and it was the 7th house. So yeah, showing my age.
All right, so let's bring in tonight's guest. Author Bill Yarborough, along with his brother and sister, underwent experiments in the CIA's mind control program, MKUltra, during the 1950s. As an adult, Bill embarked on his healing journey soon after his repressed memories surfaced. He has used many approaches to this work, including psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, parts therapy, sand play, journey work, EMDR, Reiki, and emotional freedom technique, EFT. Bill and his wife, Inga, are certified hypnotherapists, EFT practitioners, and Reiki masters who will soon provide individual EFT coaching sessions. Having served in the financial industry and served as a board president for 2 nonprofits, Bill is now a full-time author living in Texas with Inga and their 3 children. Welcome to the show, Bill Yarborough.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, well, thank you. I appreciate being invited. Thank you much.
Yeah. Now, before we even get into the questions, I want to mention to the listeners that we found Bill Yarborough through LinkedIn. Bill has been very assertive, if not aggressive, out there in promoting his book and getting his name out there and doing the kinds of things we try to coach our authors to do as well. So congratulations on that, Bill. So you got some attention, and hey, boy, you get to be on one of the best podcasts there ever was now, too, huh?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, no, I think I've done some advanced publicity on LinkedIn, and it has definitely been working well, getting interest from a number of different quarters. One thing I wanted to add is that my wife and I did live in Texas, and we actually got married in San Antonio, Texas, met there. But we actually live in California now, Northern California.
Oh, cool.
So you're living in Northern California now. Where are you originally
That's
from?
right.
And where all have you lived?
Okay, so actually, I was born in New York City, in Manhattan, and I didn't live there very long. My father got a job opportunity. He was a student at Columbia University, and he got a teaching job in Maryland. So we moved to Southern Maryland, actually the site of the very first state capital of Maryland, and believe it or not, Annapolis is the current capital and is the oldest state capital, but St. Mary's predated Annapolis. And so it was rural Maryland, and we came across sort of the ruins of the former city because it had sort of deteriorated, broken pipes or nails and things like that. And it's in Maryland where we kind of got into the MK Ultra program, but we'll talk more about that later. Then we moved, and I was age 11, to Texas in the Dallas area, where my father got a job at a university. And, that was a bit of an adjustment, moving from rural Maryland to suburban Texas. But I was there quite a number of years. Professional career started there, ended up living in San Antonio, where I met my wife, got married, and got 3 kids in the bargain. And then the financial institution I worked for transferred me to the San Francisco Bay Area, where we've been since. So I've got 3 big states to my name: New York, Texas, and California.
Well, where did you go to school among all of those move-arounds?
It's called the University of North Texas. It's in Denton, Texas, and that's about 30 miles north of Dallas. And I went into accounting. I became a CPA, but it's actually a very famous music school. And there was a lot of their jazz band is very famous, and then actually in Denton also was Texas Women's University, where my father was a professor.
Oh, cool.
So you're now in your bio I mentioned that you're married and have 3 children. You have any grandchildren? What's your family situation like now?
Right now, of course, our kids are, adults now. They all of them are on good career path. We did have the opportunity to have 1 grandson that we're delighted to have, and we also have grand dogs. That seems to be what our daughter has a wonderful little pug called Beem, and we love it when he visits. My wife and I are basically, I'm retired fully, although I'm spending a lot of time on my writing endeavors. We do love to travel with friends and family. We've been to a number of foreign countries and a lot of places within the United States. We tend to go with tour groups where they actually sort of meet families that live in these different countries, even join them at their homes for dinners on occasion. So yeah, we most recently we were in Greece and Italy and London, and actually went to Scandinavia this summer. Yeah, that's a very fulfilling thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Now, people, we're taking phone calls. If you want to talk to Bill Yarborough, you got a question, you got a comment, or you just want to hurl accusations at your co-hosts, or whatever reason you want to call, the phone number is 516-453-9902. Give us a call. We're talking to author Bill Yarborough.
Yeah. So Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I was going to say we might want to get into the MK Ultra story if you like.
We're going to get to that, Bill. We've got a rundown here.
Okay.
We did want to ask you more about your career. You said you retired from accounting, financial. You were a nonprofit board president twice. What kind of nonprofits were those, and what other boards and stuff were you on?
So yeah, actually, one of them was actually the board president of our church for our denomination. It's the largest, one of the largest churches in California. And the other one was the East Bay Regional Park. It actually, Contra Costa County, Alameda County, where Oakland, California is located. They actually, people in this area love parks. So they created this back in the 30s. Right now they have over 60 parks. Actually, I believe as far as number of parks, concentration number of parks in an area, it's one of the greatest in the country at the time, and may still be the largest regional park in the United States. So that I was treasurer and then vice president and then president of that board, and it was a very enjoyable experience. My wife and I love outdoors and love to go to the parks, and they've got some really magnificent parks. On the volunteer work, one of the other things I did was, for many years, I was a chaplain volunteer at the juvenile hall, both in San Antonio. It was called the Juvenile Detention Center, and then we moved to California, the Contra Costa Juvenile Hall, and so I would go in and counsel with the kids there, and that was I found that a very rewarding experience, and gave me a lot of insights to what's going on to kids in that age.
That's a fantastic experience, and definitely sounds like you learned a lot. And
yeah,
you might be writing for that audience and age group one of these days as well, huh?
Yeah. Actually, of course, my novel does involve kids in that age, and so yeah, it definitely does that. And one of the biggest challenges back in the 90s when I was in San Antonio was when the gangs were so dominant, and a lot of those kids just got sucked into that, and those were very sad stories, and I really tried to help them find a way out.
That's cool.
Their big fear was that if they got out, then they would be sucked back in. So that was a lot of what the conversations were about, and obviously, since I was a chaplain volunteer, faith and turning to God is a big piece of that. But there was a lot of other strategies we discussed as well.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. We're going to remind our listeners about how to call in right now. If you want to play that bumper Beam, and then we'll come back and talk to Bill Yarborough.
All right.
Call 516-453-9902 right now with your questions or comments for tonight's guest, or post a note on Twitter with #FreshInkGroup in the body of the tweet, and we'll read it on air. That's 516-453-9902 or #FreshInkGroup on Twitter.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Bill, now that you're retired and your book is completed, what kind of hobbies do you have? Do you have something that can take your mind off of all the craziness in the world? Hobbies, interests? How do you like to spend your time?
Yeah, well, again, I had mentioned the traveling that we do, but obviously you can't do that all the time. My wife and I really, of course, we're active in our church. I have a lot of friends through that. So socializing with friends, and then our kids, connecting with them when they come up. We, as I mentioned, our interest in the outdoors. So I do enjoy walking, and I wouldn't be what I would call a hiker, but we actually live in an area that's near these trails where you get these very nice views of the surrounding area, and let's just I always find that being in nature is very refreshing and very calming. So actually, when I was board president of the Regional Parks Foundation, we actually financed a study that was used by the Oakland Children's Hospital to document how spending time outdoors, in this case for children, but it's true for adults too, Statistically, if they did it so many times a week, their anxiety levels dropped at a statistically significant rate. So other things that I do, of course, enjoy reading. We do watch, obviously, television and movies. I really enjoy those kinds of things. And also theater. Going to go to a musical performance tomorrow evening. So yeah, those things keep us occupied.
All right. Yeah, Northern California. That's quite beautiful up there.
I love it.
Now, let's talk about you. We'll swing towards your book now and talk about your childhood. Where you grew up. How did you get involved in this MK Ultra stuff? And first of all, what is MK Ultra?
What is it? Yeah.
Sure. So some people know, some people don't. So in the 1950s, from 1953 to 1964, the CIA operated a secret mind control program. It was called MK Ultra. It was very secret even within the CIA itself, and they basically experimented with electric shock, psychedelic drugs, hypnosis, isolation, psychological assault, and other such techniques. And they had three broad goals. One of them was to master mind control in and of itself. The idea was that if you subject people to these kinds of shocks, then the brain kind of becomes blank, and then you can program in what you want. And the way they wanted to use it was also to develop better interrogation techniques for enemy agents when they were captured. And if American agents were captured, they wanted to develop a method whereby they would not divulge secrets if they were captured. And it actually was spread out amongst 80 different institutions throughout the United States, universities, and colleges. Some of the most prestigious ones in the country were involved, hospitals, detention centers, prisons, and then private individuals as well, and pharmaceutical companies. Basically, it was exposed in 1973. The New York Times was published an article of illegal CIA activities involving their surveillance of domestic citizens, which they're not really authorized to do, and then overthrowing governments in South America. So there was these big investigations which dug up MK Ultra, included the church committees, investigation of the U.S. Senate. President Ford at the time created the Rockefeller Commission to investigate the things the CIA was doing, including MK Ultra. And then there was a lot of journalist investigations. Now, a lot of people, when they heard about this and the fact that they did this to adults, to college students, university students, and children, find it hard to believe. But I tell them to go to my website, and when you go there, you'll see numerous, a great array of articles written about mind control and MK Ultra by the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR, BBC, quite a number. I've seen an article in the Wall Street Journal. And so it's basically, some people think it's a conspiracy theory. Well, it certainly was a conspiracy because it was kept very secret, but it's an historical fact. And some very good books are also referenced on my website, and my website's BillYarborough.com, that really dug into probably the one that really revealed the most information. It's called The Search for the Manchurian Candidate by John Marks. And he actually used the Freedom of Information Act to get the remaining documents. Before the Church Committee began its work, Richard Helms was director of the CIA, who actually was very involved with creating MK Ultra. He ordered all the documents destroyed. Some did survive, but John Marks got those documents and then interviewed the people that were involved and pretty much exposed in a lot of detail what was going on. So the only other thing I'll add before we get to my specific case is that, a lot of people think this might have just been something that occurred, in the 50s but really didn't have much of an effect. But what this book pointed out, and another really good book, The Poisoner in Chief by Stephen Pinker, is that they basically owned in the late 50s and early 60s almost all the LSD in the country. They were obsessed with actually magic mushrooms that shamans used in Mexico, and they sent an agent down there to a sacred ceremony to get these mushrooms, and they created psilocybin. MKUltra was composed of a lot of chemists. So they shipped significant quantities of psychedelic drugs to universities and colleges, encouraging the professors and whatnot to distribute it, give it to the students, and encouraging the students to use it. So Marx in his book and Kesner in his book, and a very well-reviewed books, said basically they significantly contribute to and caused the drug revolution of the 1960s and the counterculture movement of the 1960s. So it did not turn out the way they wanted, needless to say, but that's basically what happened. And then, when they realized where it was going, a lot of those drugs, of course, became outlawed. And there's other longer-term impacts from MKUltra as well, where they developed what they call shock therapy, and that's been used by the CIA. I mentioned overthrowing governments in South America and helping them maintain dictatorships, but it was also used at the invitation of the Russian and Chinese government to help create their market economies, put people in a state of shock so that they wouldn't resist all of these radical changes. So, did you have a question about that? I'll take it, or I can get into how we got sucked into this.
Well, I'm kind of curious, to what extent that you were actually a test subject, what kinds of things they were doing to you. Back in the early 80s, I taught a class at the University of Michigan, and one of the subjects we got into was studying different kinds of counterculture psychedelic research. Timothy Leary was doing a bunch of stuff. We talked about the MKUltra program. So are we literally talking about you as a child were given lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, in order to see what it would do?
Yes, and in Kisner's book, he documents how they went to places like juvenile halls to give those kinds of drugs to kids. And that's what we recall happened to us. My sister was 8, I was 4, my brother was 2. My sister, who actually, got swept up, and interesting enough, I think she's pretty sure she was given psychedelics in the MKUltra program based on her memories. That felt right to me, too, because it's just the very odd nature of some of the things we remembered. But then she got swept up, and of course we repressed these memories for 30 years. We did not know that we had been in that program for 30 years. But she got swept up in the 60s drug revolution while she was in college. And what we remember between the three of us is electric shock. We all three remembered that. Isolation. We were kept in jail cells. We remembered. I remember being hypnotized. It was very, very clear. Also the psychological assault, I think, was one of the most common things that we were subjected to. One of the things that kind of getting into why we got into it and some of the nature of some of the people that ran this program, it kind of ties together here. You may have heard of Operation Paperclip. The United States government created that after World War II.
After World War II,
and the goal was, you've heard of it. So the goal was to raid Nazi Germany of the talent, that might help the U.S. win the Cold War. Now, of course, Russia and China was doing the same thing, and they were also, working with the remains of imperialist Japan, because they operated prison camps as well. So Dachau is where Hitler actually had one of his mind control programs. They were doing these techniques, electric shock, on, concentration camp prisoners. So they, according to Stephen Kisner's book, they went in there, and when they were interviewing these people to determine that they had conducted crimes against humanity, the War Crimes Branch was doing that, if they saw somebody that had, quote, expertise in important fields, they'd put a paperclip on their file. So then, even if they had slaughtered a lot of people, that was forgiven, and they would then be given new identities and brought to the United States. Now, they were also looking for rocket expertise. You probably heard the most famous Operation Paperclip recruit is Wernher von Braun, who built the V-2 rockets. And he came to America and created our rocket program and all the way up to the Saturn V rocket that got us to the moon. I don't think this is necessarily connected to why I got into MKUltra. I'll get into that in a minute. But interestingly enough, my mother grew up in Nazi Germany, and her godmother was Wernher von Braun's mother.
Wow.
But more significant than that, my father was in the War Crimes Branch. He was a lawyer. He fought in World War II, but when the war was over, he wanted to stay there because his sister was living there and in Germany for a while. So since he was a lawyer, he joined the War Crimes Branch, and he was at Nuremberg, but he also was assigned to Dachau. That's actually where he met our mother. And my parents' birth certificate is, not their birth certificate, their marriage certificate is Dachau. He's in Dachau. It sounds as the location. And so that's what I believe happened, that he somehow got involved in identifying these people. And then when the war was over, and we lived in Maryland, Maryland was the basically headquarters of MKUltra. Fort Detrick, Maryland, it was Camp Detrick at that time. It was basically for, even though it was spread a lot of other places, but that was basically where it was centralized. And so we think those factors caused us to be in it. I did confront my father. When we first began to remember these experiences, we had no idea it was MKUltra. But we remembered the things that I told you about, the electric shock, the jail cells, and so forth. And so I confronted him about that. And it was a very strange experience. Initially, in the voice that I knew, that I grew up with, he said, I don't know anything about that. But then suddenly he started glancing over his shoulders, and then he began to whisper in this very strange voice that didn't sound like him, and his mannerisms didn't sound like him. And that voice began to defend these people. And then he would look over kept on looking over his shoulders like he was trying to keep this from somebody. But no one else was in the house. It was just he and I. And then he went back to his normal self, said, I don't know anything about this. And then he'd go back. And then he would start defending these people, that they were well-intended, but they couldn't control the dark impulses. And that was the problem. Then he'd go back. So I thought split. Now this feels like a split. I don't know for certain, but that's how it came across to me. And as I told you earlier, that was one of the big missions of MKUltra, to create split personalities with the sub-personality having the assignment, knowing the mission, the primary personality not knowing the mission. So that if they were captured, they would not divulge what they knew. Now, I don't really think that probably worked out that well, because when I confronted my father, this split showed up pretty quick. And that's sort of, according to the Kisner's book, what the reason why they eventually shut it down is that they're realizing that these kinds of approaches were not producing the results they were looking for. But
yeah,
no, they did.
They never have managed to find results with like the psychedelics, for example, that they wanted. I went to high school and college in the 70s, so hey, psychedelics are something that some people are familiar with from that era.
Yeah.
And my experience has been when you're sitting at a party and everybody there is doing acid and stuff like that, everybody reacts differently. Yeah. And it's just, there's so much unpredictability there. It intensifies emotions. If you're feeling paranoid, you get really paranoid. So I could not see how that could possibly be useful, but you never know. They might something out of it. Now, Bill, what you're describing is kind of hard for a lot of people to imagine, for a child to go through. How did you heal from that? How did you move on?
Well, several factors. One, the memories were repressed for 30 years. And even though I was functional, I basically had a number of issues that really made it difficult. I was terrified of authority figures. I sometimes would freeze up in front of them. Social interactions always made me uneasy. I never thought I would get married. Something Bologna, streak of paranoia, always thinking the worst things are going to happen. And memory blocks really drain you a lot. So my concentration wasn't good. But as we began to remember these things, my sister, basically had a vision in which she was told that we had repressed part of our childhood, and we needed to remember that. And then, as these memories began to tumble out, initially they weren't about NKO, so they were about something else. And I don't want to get into everything in my book, so I'll leave that out. But we were remembering some pretty significant things. So we both, we all got involved in therapy. Unfortunately, my brother, who was the youngest, the most vulnerable, became psychotic when he was 23 and ended up being mentally ill, never fully recovered. But my sister and I were more functional, but therapy was one key thing. But there's another key memory that was probably the most significant of all, is that after an intensive session where my brother, sister, and I met with my brothers and my therapist for 7 straight days, we had a memory block collapse. Our therapist was puzzled about why my sister and I were as functional as we were, given that there was what he called no contravening positive influence. Well, that evening we remembered the positive contravening influence. And, I mentioned that they were obsessed with shamanism. There was this boy there, and I never could figure out why he was there until I read his book and realized that they were interested in shamanism, who was raised to be a shaman, who was older than us, very advanced, and he was there sort of as a protector as best he could under the circumstances. So I think that was very critical as to why I haven't ended up like my brother and other. A lot of people have ended up in MKO for, have had a very difficult life. So I think I was very fortunate that I had a form of protection. And actually remembering them, the day before I remembered them, I thought I would never get married. The day after I remembered them, I went through a transformation, and I knew I would. And within a year and a half, I got married to my wife. So, but therapy was very helpful. The talk therapy was very useful. It triggered some big memory breaks. And then I've used a lot of, and I can talk about that at some point, innovative techniques, hypnotherapy. You went off the list at the beginning. All those techniques were very valuable, and particularly EFT. But, I knew I was different, and I knew growing up, and that's sort of the way the novel is designed. There's 2 storylines. One of them is from the standpoint of the man who's running this program the kids are in. Actually happens to be a Nazi from Germany, and he's not the worst one, because there's one in my novel that's from the prison camps, the concentration camps, and he was much more dangerous. And the other storyline is from the perspective of the 3 fictional kids, just before they go into the program, and then after the program, and then covers them growing up, and into, through elementary, junior, high school, and then into college, and then into adulthood. And a lot of the novel is designed that way to give you the insights into the power of the unconscious mind. So the reader knows the things that happen to these kids. They can understand why these kids are twisted in certain ways. The kids don't understand. They think they know why they do certain things, but they really don't know, because it's all unconscious. And that's one of my goals, besides, putting forward that this program actually existed and impacted people. The characters experiences are based on our experiences, but the characters are different. Character protagonist Tommy, he's really goes into politics. He's obsessed with politics, as I was, but I never went into politics. I never had a political career. And they sort of programmed us. My brother to become a soldier. My sister was put in the drug program, and I was sort of, by the Nazis, given a political job.
Wow, that's just amazing. So the name of the book is MK Ultra, and it's out there now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, say it again. Memories of
MK
Ultra, right? And then it's out there in paperback and ebook.
Yes, it's on Kindle and paperback. The people can order it now. This isn't the official publication date because they're making a couple of corrections to the novel, the paperback novel. The Kindle version is fine. They're not big, but before the big marketing push, we want to have those corrections made. And as you discussed, I don't think the picture of the book is going to show up for a while.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing.
Figure out how. Let us know.
Yeah, I will.
Drop enough acid. Whoa, look at that cover.
Now, Bill, what's next for you? You got any new projects? You ever think of maybe writing a memoir instead of a novel and actually sharing your own personal experiences, or something different?
Well, actually, this novel is going to be a series, probably a trilogy. So I'm actually working on the second installment. Part of it is already written. And then, you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, my wife and I are very interested in healing techniques. And so another website I'm going to be opening up called communaltapping.com, and it'll be opened up, hopefully in the next month to 2 months. There'll be articles you can read about hypnotherapy that I wrote with a very experienced therapist who was in the practice, still is, for 40 years, and the power of gratitude, things, some sort of sophisticated things like ancestral trauma. It's basically the DNA expression shows that trauma gets passed down from ancestors, your parents and your grandparents to you, and that you may not have had experiences like I have, but you could inherit trauma nonetheless through DNA, and past like regression, Reiki, EMDR. So then our main focus is what's called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. It's a tapping technique on your face and upper body that can help you release negative emotions as well as physical issues. And it's very powerful. I found it very effective. You can carry it around in your back pocket because you can do it yourself. Now, I recommend if you have severe traumas like I have, you certainly get a therapist. And many therapists use this technique along with the other ones that I mentioned, with their patients. But we're going to put out a book because we sort of discovered that it's much more powerful doing it in groups, and that's what our book is going to be about. And we're going to offer EFT coaching services.
Oh, cool.
So I think,
right. I'm sorry, you said something, Bill?
Working on a novel, and then I said my sister and I are working on a novel together, a novel that's going to come out in the future.
Oh, okay.
Is that related to this, or just a different subject entirely?
Different subject entirely.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. We'll keep us informed. We'll make sure we put it in our newsletter and talk about it and help spread the word. So, listeners, our guest today has been Bill Yarborough. The book he's been talking about is Memories of MK Ultra. Bill, how do people find you, follow you, contact you? What are your social media handles? Tell us again that website.
Yes. Okay, it's BillYarborough.com, my name.com, and then go to the novel page because there's going to be those major media articles I told you about, the book recommendations, the information about the novel, and then at the bottom of each page are all of my social media links, so you can go to those, pretty much on most of them. And the contact page on the website is the best way to contact me.
All right. Cool. Bill Yarborough, thanks for being our guest. It's been a lot of fun having you on, and we certainly learned a lot and talked about some really cool subjects.
Well, thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
All right. Now, people, you know that we had some trouble with Blog Talk Radio a few weeks back, and we had our guest, Dave Hooker, who's the sports writer and author of Celebrate 98, about the Tennessee Vols' 1998 winning championship season, and we couldn't get him on that night because of Blog Talk Radio, so he's booked for next week. So look for that next Wednesday. Dave Hooker of Off the Hook Sports, author of Celebrate 98 about the Tennessee Vols. And do we have any more podcasts after that, Beem?
We don't have any scheduled right now, but we do have guests lined up coming soon. We have Braden Dexter Green. We talked about his book, Trains of Alabama. Loretta Spencer, the first woman mayor of Huntsville. And Carlisle Toms will come in and talk about his latest, The Gulls Are Always Laughing. So keep that in mind. I'm looking, I see, because the week after Dave Hooker is going to be a rerun. And going into December, these will be our guests. Yeah.
So, again, thanks for coming on the show, Bill. Listeners, if you're interested in looking at his book cover, seeing an excerpt, learn more about him or whatever, remember that newsletter that you got this morning's got that as well. So go check that out. Make sure you leave a review about Bill's book after you buy a copy and read it. Look for the trilogy because they're working on more books than the first one. And I hear there might even be an audio book about this someday. So keep track of Bill. If you get a chance to follow him and see what he's up to.
All right. So, again, thank you, Bill. And everybody, we appreciate you showing up. Oh, before we do go, I want to read a tweet or a post on X because this is geared at Bill. Verwayne Greenhouse says, I'll look for Bill's novel on MK Ultra as soon as it breaks from the corral. I've got a back burner novel in progress which mentions it quite often. They were not a friendly group of people. So there you go.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody next week. Thanks, Bill.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Voice of Indy.
You've been a part of Voice of Indy, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at freshinkgroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.